Right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going on now to the interactive chart. The interactive chart is the one that works interactively. It's moving all the time, and it's moving between me, the children, and between the work all the time. It's an excellent way of testing learners to see whether they've understood, and it's an interesting way for them because they're wide awake all the time waiting for their turn to go and put something up. And it makes it interesting because as the lesson progresses, you build on that chart. And then when that chart is completely built up and your lesson is told, you take everything down. And then you let the children start building the lesson again. All right? You never ever put anything on here with glue. Now, I've had first years who actually show me their interactive chart, and then as they put the things up, they glue it on. That's not an interactive chart because I can't take them off. Because when I pull them off now, they're going to tear. So it's got to be able to interact. There. All right? Let's start here. This is a very basic example, and I would say a very poor example as well, because this writing is terribly untidy and the lines are not even drawn nicely. But this is a perfect example because it has pets and wild animals, and it has all these pets are separate and they are put on with press stick, and then they're taken off. And all these wild animals, as the teacher teaches about it, she puts them on with press stick. Now at the end of the lesson, she takes all these animals off. And she calls Sipu and she says, Sipu, here is an animal for you. Go and put it whether you think it's a pet or a wild animal. And Sipu comes along and sticks it on where he thinks it should go. So that at the end, when you've asked them all and they've all had a turn, it's going to look like this as you did it in the beginning. All right. Okay, now let's start with this interactive chart. Don't forget, with an interactive chart, I have to decide whether I'm going to use this size, whether I'm going to use this size. And remember I told you, you're going to do this now as an assignment, so don't worry about going to buy this expensive stuff. Find a piece of cardboard and cover it with white paper. I've seen some beautiful charts made like that. All right? I'm using this because it's easier for me to stick up on here. Otherwise the cardboard would be too hard and I wouldn't be able to keep it up. Right, so now I've got to decide what is my lesson about. And I've decided that I'm going to be teaching parts of speech. Boring. Because most teachers stand there with a textbook and say to the children, there are 8 parts of speech. They are a noun, a pronoun, and they rattle them off, read them off, and they say to the children, now sit down, you're going to do exercise 25 out of the textbook. Go and find out which are nouns, which are pronouns. Pointless. So I'm going to try now today and use an interactive chart for it. You might be a history specialist. So today, let's say you have to teach a lesson on the first people who came to the Cape. Now, reading it out of a textbook. No. Let's do an interactive chart of it, where the Cape is on this map, how they arrived, what the ships looked like, where they moved to, what was there, what was growing, grapes, what was here, what was growing here, all that sort of thing. So you need to make a chart and you need to find out things about it, not just the basics that are in a book. Right, so let's do the parts of speech. The first thing I would do to introduce this lesson is I would say to them, how do we write? What do we use? We use a pen, yes. We use paper, yes. But what do we write? We write letters of the alphabet which make words. Yes, you use your phone and your two little thumbs and make words. So I'm going to put up a few words today, and I'm going to see whether you can read them for me and whether they make sense. And you put all these up. I'm not going to do them all because it's going to take too long, but I would put a sentence like this up. And I would say to them, so-and-so, read me this sentence. And he'd stand up and say, busy the blue wow at. And I'd say, that doesn't make sense, does it? How can we get this to make sense? Because you see, each one of these words has a job. That's what parts of speech are. They are parts of speech that make sense. They have a job to do. And these are all in the wrong order. They're not doing their jobs. So this doesn't make sense. So we are going to find out what kind of parts of speech there are. And so I put up my first part of speech, which is nouns. And I say to them, can anybody tell me what a noun is? And I say, I've got them all in clouds because I want you to put all this information I'm going to tell you up in the clouds, which is up here in your heads. All right? So, who can tell me about a noun? Yes, a noun is a naming word. Good. What does it name? It can name a person, a place, or a thing. Give me an example, and they give me an example. I can either write it on here, but I prefer not to because I'm going to now take my examples of my nouns and I'm going to put them onto this cloud. All right? So table, yes, he's told me about a table. A lady, yes, those are nouns. And whatever up here was there, I can get somebody to come and take it and put it here. Now, I want to remind you that this chart, an interactive chart, is never, ever used in an introduction. This was my introduction here. I didn't have this chart out. Play, pretend. I just had this to introduce the lesson, to get their attention. I want to haul them in because he's fiddling with something, he's pulling somebody's hair, he's listening to music on his. I've got to get their attention. I've got to grip them. And the only way I can grip them is to show them something at the beginning that sparks their interest. And they think, I wonder what she's doing now. So that is what I would put up. And then I would put up this chart and I would start my lesson. Right. So the next one after nouns, I would go on to pronouns. Good. And they would tell me what a pronoun is. I would first tell them. And please don't forget, there are two things I want you to remember when you're teaching. Never say to children, I want you all to listen carefully because after this, you're going to write a test. They know that's rubbish. All you're trying to do is trying to get them to listen. So rather say to them, I hope you're going to be interested in what I'm going to teach you today because it's going to be very helpful for you, especially when you are trying to communicate with somebody in an interview, in a discussion, in a conversation, so that you know where to use the different parts of speech. Okay? So never say to them, I want you all to listen carefully today because you're going to write a test. And then never start by saying, what is a pronoun? You tell me, you tell me. Because then each one's going to tell you a different thing. Rather say to them, the second one we're going to discuss is a pronoun. And a pronoun, and you tell them, a pronoun stands in the place of a noun. So instead of lady, what would it be? it would be she. Instead of table, it would be it. And I find it and I put it up here on pronouns. And then I go to my third one, which would be adjectives. And I put adjectives first. Let's do that. I put adjectives up because I'm trying to keep them. The only reason why I'm doing this is trying to keep them in the way that they would form in a sentence. Okay? So I would put them up and I would try and find some of them and I put them in there and I would do the rest of it until all of them are on my chart. Let's just put them up here. And let's pretend now that I have taught them all, because this is what I'm doing with it. I'm not testing them, I'm teaching them first. What is an interject? An interjection? What is a preposition? What is a conjunction? And I've gone through it all. And on each one of them, I have put the words to help them. Okay? So, preposition, but. No, sorry. Conjunction. Conjunction, sorry. So, and I put them all up. Right. Now, once I've done this whole lesson, now I say to them, let's have a look and see whether you know what has gone on here. And I would take all these off. And then I would say to one of them, come up and show me where this word would go. Carefully. Let them all read it carefully. And that person would come up and say, carefully is an adverb. I read carefully. So I would put it up there because it belongs with the adverbs. Right? And it would stay there because it's going to listen to me. Okay? And this is why I say I cannot use Prit to stick these things on, because they're not going to stay on there. They're all going to come off. And tomorrow when I do another lesson, they're all going to go back on again. And then I'm going to take them off, and then the children are all going to put them back on again. It's going to go back and forward and back and forward. These things are going to look very tatty by the time we've finished. And then I would do the next one, and I would show them there and ask them, this is the word there, what is it? And they would tell me what it is, and one person would come and put it up wherever it belongs. Right, now I've got the whole lot up. Now what? Now I've got to get to my consolidation of my lesson. I've got to finish my lesson off. I can't just say, there it is, that's the parts of speech. Okay, I taught it nicely, now we're going to write the test. No. I've now let them come up and I've let them put up. Now we want to do something with it. All right? So now I put them into groups. And don't ever let them choose their own groups. Because when you say we're going to work in groups, they all start running for their friends. And then there are 2 or 3 that are left that have no group at all. You put them in their groups. You say, you, and you, that's the group. You, and you are the leader of that group. You, and you do it. You are the teacher. You give what you want to happen. Don't let them tell you what they want to happen. Once they're in their groups, you say to them, right, now, each one's going to get a piece of paper. And in your group, you are going to have a look at all these different examples. And let's see which group is the quickest to make a sentence using one from each of these parts of speech. And then they come in and they read it in the front, and everybody can talk about it, and they can say, oh, but that's not an adverb. Oh, yes, but that's not an adjective. And so they'll start discussing and talking about what we've just learned. And that is the only way they're going to remember, not from you reading it out of a book. And there are many other things we can do with this. They can sit down and they can do a written exercise with this lesson. I hope this has been very clear to you about an interactive chart. They are in grade 8, 9 or 10, and so this is not too much for them to know because they've been doing parts of speech since grade 3. The teacher's been telling them a verb is a doing word. Jump, hop, skip, move. They know that. And so really, there are only a few interjections, conjunctions, and prepositions maybe that they're not sure of. But the rest they're sure of. So don't be scared about giving them all the parts of speech, if it's grade 7, grade 8, or grade 9. And I see that there are a lot of you with specialization in English. So this is what you have to do for your assignment. I'm quickly going to read it to you. You have to choose, and choose carefully. You have to choose a topic that you want to discuss. So you've got to go to your CAPS document. And the CAPS document, please don't do this today, because tomorrow morning I'm going to be doing the CAPS document with you and make it a lot easier for you. So don't sit down now straight away and start on your lesson, because you don't know what there is to teach. But we're going to look at the CAPS document, and you're going to look at your specialization, the CAPS document for your specialization. And once we've looked at that, you're going to look at what they will be learning in the second term. Why the second term? Because the second term is when you will be in the school. And you don't want to go and make a thing like this, an interactive chart, just for nothing, to go and throw behind a cupboard somewhere. You want to be able to use this when you go out to practice. So you tomorrow will choose something from the CAPS document. And once I've discussed the CAPS document with you tomorrow, then I'll explain what you need to do. That is this document here, which you will find on Learn 2023. Please do not start this, but please look through this and make sure that you understand what a poster is. Short, hits you in the face. Chart, information up so that children can look at it, read it every day, go and do a little bit of work about it. And then an interactive chart where I put things on, I take things off. And this is used not in the introduction. This is the information you are teaching them, and I never teach them anything in the introduction. And we'll talk about that next week. The introduction is something completely different. Completely different. And then I move from that introduction to my development, to what I want to teach them, and I use this interactive chart. And then for my consolidation, to finish my lesson off, I use this interactive chart for them to come and interact. I hope it's been very clear to you today. Thanks very much.